So let's talk about the Cinderella story, the Cinderella theory, and deconstructing the racial blueprint within your identity in society. Um, this is going to be a it's going to be a difficult conversation for me, but it's going to be a necessary one because I've lived the Cinderella story, and it's one of the most painful. It's actually the most painful part of my deconstruction of identity in a racial perspective. And so bear with me because am still also in the healing phase, but I think this is a very important topic to have because we have many children and we have many black children, white children, all kinds of children that have been adopted in society. They have been taken care of by different racial families and society and programmings. And there's an internal battle of trying to deconstruct this racial blueprint that your family has created for you if you're not of that same race. So I will go back into explaining why this is important for me and why I think this is an important topic to discuss. Um, my mother passed away at the age of 4, and my father needed, a woman figure to also support me and take care of me. And, you know, we literally cannot live, guys, without a woman. We literally, I don't care if you are he, she, it, they, what, us, we are never, like, we cannot live with the woman construct, and we cannot live without a mother figure in society. From planets, from the earth, from flowers, we need mother's nature. We need that mother figure in our life, okay? And so I've been very grateful to have had many mother figures step in. And, particularly at that age, I was very tender, and my mother was my world to me, as a black woman. Like, I really respect her now, even though it's been years later, but I respect her. Like, she's my role model as a black woman. And it's very important to realize that. But over the years, I've had to have different mothers step in. And so at that time, I was very grateful to have a stepmother who stepped in, and she was my German aunt. I also had a neighbor who was a white woman who was our next door neighbor, and she also was a mother figure to me for years and years and years and years, because my German aunt was in Germany at the time. I needed also a physical close by every single day type of mother, and I really do think it was divine orchestrated, divinely guided. I'm a believer, so I know it was God who placed a mother near me in my reality. And so both of these women, they had colored children. And so they really understood, the racial imprint and the racial discrimination through the eyes of their own children, right? Because they were colored. However, there was racial discrepancy throughout the the role of being a stepmother for me. And this is really, really, really painful for me to discuss because when you are the Auslander, when you are the outcasted child in this racial construction of a supportive, diverse family, you get the back end of your, you get the back end for being darker, you get the back end for being having less than, and you get the back end for receiving and needing the support and resources and privilege that comes with a diverse, supportive family. And that was my experience growing up because I really loved all my mothers. I love them and they're fantastic women. Listen, this is not a video to speak ill about them. They were fantastic to the best of their ability, and they too, as women, carried pain for having colorful children. They too carried that within society. And so it was a real program of different identity statuses, right? Where they had to risk it all as the white woman to going back into their family with a colored child. At that time, racism was, I mean, apartheid is still fresh, guys. I'm the same age as my country's freedom, which means that when I was born, that was the last year of apartheid. So when we grew up, we were called the born frees because we were the only free children that were racially free to speak to each other. So that's how it was such a beautiful journey to be a diverse family, and my cousin was an Afro-German. She still is, and the next door neighbor, that I considered the people I grew up with, they were my family. However, the construction was different, the pain was different, the feeling was different, the experience was different, the the hierarchy was different, the haves and the have nots were different, and we were well well I felt the difference. And in this video, I want to break down these specific historical layers that transform a story of magic into a tool of social hierarchy within these realms, and how to break that Cinderella spell. Because when you are growing up in the family narrative of we are supporting you, but we are going to use you. We are going to use you emotionally, we are going to use you racially, and we are going to use you sexually, or we're going to use your aesthetics. We're going to look what we like about you, but we're also going to look what we don't like about you and try to transform and use and abuse what we think is best for our family. Um, and it's not always seen like that, when I need to make this more personalized, because as the Cinderella theory, it's literally, she had no mother. Cinderella herself, she had no mother. But even the Cinderella herself, that was not her name. It was a name that was given to her, and it was given to her through the shame and through the through the burning and the ashes of her losing her identity. They she was always she was living next to the cinder. I think it's called the sind, like the flames next to the fire. And so that was where the stepsisters started laughing at her because she was ashy. She was constantly cleaning for them. She was constantly the one that was um providing a sense of household kindness and emotional stability within that family. And her sisters were mean to her, and her mother too was mean to her because they had the resources, and they had the privilege of society, and they had a social hierarchy within society at that time. So when Cinderella's father passed away and when Cinderella's mom passed away, her inheritance was used against her. Her identity was appropriated and used against her. So my story is really that deep. And I want to speak about this because The stepmother figure in this modern society or this modern system is the gatekeeper for success and validates only certain versions of Cinderella's identity. And when I lived in Germany, I had to get rid of an identity that I lived with. I had to get rid of a creativity that I lived with in order to be successful in a Western world that I now lived in. And there's something that happens to any child of a different race that is living in westernized programming and racial disparity. There's something that happens that is so unspoken of. It's actually a spell to forget who you are just to make it and become this amazing star. And I know the stepmother in my experience, she did not mean harm, but there was a lot of harm that was caused because the moment I stood up against this narrative and this success, the backlash was real. And so, Americans would call this Uncle Sam, right? And the Uncle Sam theory is real because you were enslaved, you came through a ship to America, and Uncle Sam suddenly gives you a new life and tells you that you won't suffer the way you suffered and provides provision, gets you to the best high school, the best primary school, the best private school, the best healthcare, right? That's the narrative of you won't have to, we will help you, we will support you, we will be there for you. But in exchange for that, we want A, B, and C. And we want your soul for this beautiful cream. So that's exactly how I felt, is that a part of me was taken away from me. And not the part where people could see, but a part that I had to live with every day, bleeding in and out. But basically, it's that deep where, it was an example of, for instance, I started painting and I was painting a lot in Germany, and I started really being confident in being a painter, and I could see myself also selling, my paintings and my canvases, and my stepmother at that time was saying that, what, you are not going to be painting because you're not going to be painting because you're not going to be like your father. And that really hit me. That really hit me. I couldn't comprehend it. I still can't comprehend it today. But after all those years, I've never painted after that. And that hurts because the part of me that is an artist, the part of me that creates, the part of me that paints, the part of me that sings, the part of me that rings, the part of me that dances, the part of me that really that is me had to be deconstructed. It had to be removed. It had to be burnt. It had to be part of the ashes of my identity. And we were also preparing to come back to, or I was preparing to come back to South Africa. Um, and in that preparation, it meant, like German style, there's certain jobs you must have, there's certain security measures, right, that will provide a certain success. If you're going to be in the corporate world, Bianca, you cannot dress like an African woman. You have to be corporate looking, which means less colors, less, more uh, appropriately lookable and likable. And this is the construct of the Cinderella theory, where you are being broken down bit by bit on who you are, so that you can sit and live and be the version that does not benefit you, but benefits those around you in society. And so that is exactly what I experienced, and that is exactly how I feel. And the moment I felt the truth coming out within that, where it really, I have a holy rage. I am not 100% healed from that experience. I'm still really, I'm angry because I've lost a version of myself that I'm reclaiming and that I'm so thankful that I am becoming. But I'm also speaking from this because a lot of our children that are being adopted are being programmed into a certain kind of look of what that child must be as a black child in a white family, as a Philippines, as an Asian, that Asian persuasion is real as well, and it's very important to realize that what happens behind the scenes is much more detrimental to somebody's personality and identity. And, if that person speaks up like me, suddenly we are labeled once again as the angry black woman or as the person who's got a lot of anger and a lot of hate and a lot of, we need to cage her, we need to watch out for her, we need to make sure she doesn't speak out of tune. There's constant appropriation to that reality. It's quite it's quite manipulative, and it's very sad. So it's very important to realize that if you have lived the Cinderella story, it's very important to reclaim your identity by yourself without the step mothers and the step sisters and the step versions who stepped in to tell you who you need to be to succeed and who you need to be to be who to be yourself. However, there is always hope, and there's always joy in these kind of theories, because you learn a lot through a glass slipper shoe. You learn a lot, and there's a lot of support that is very external and very spiritual. And so it's about really breaking the spell of that narrative, of that historical layer. And it's really breaking that spell so that you become free, you become whole. And this is why I love the Cinderella story a lot, because it takes a whole society to look for this individual who has been so unique, who's also been hidden, who's been hidden in the attics for their uniqueness, for their gifts, for their individuality, for their speciality. And it takes a society again to, look and seek for something that nobody can steal, not even the identity or the destiny. And so this is why I love the story so much, is because sometimes, and I'm going to keep it real right now, sometimes we are living in family members in we're living in family members that are much more light skinned than us, much more privileged than us, much more, they have more. And so what they do is they always use the less haves and the one who is suffering to get ahead in life. And they extract, there's a lot of extraction going on within the Cinderella theory, where there's family members and their society people and those in hierarchy roles who are meant to assist this person. They assist from an external perspective, but from an internal and a spiritual and emotional perspective, they are extracting. And so what we have is, we have the Cinderella individual doing the emotional labor in the family construct. They are doing the spiritual labor. They are the ones who are holding the weight. They are the ones who are called the black sheep, the gate, what's the other word? The black sheep, I forgot all these words, right? They are the ones that are seeing through the illusions, the confusion, and they are the ones that are really being more condemned than anybody else. And when they speak up, it's still labeled as them not being appreciative of how far they've come, or appreciative of the support that they're receiving. So that is exactly the concept of Uncle Sam, is that you have somebody who comes in with a suite, but what's actually happening is there's a terms and conditions, and there's something in exchange for them helping you. And so if you've been through this, it's really, really important to realize that your uniqueness cannot be stolen from you. Your destiny, your energy, your emotional well-being is yours, and you need to reclaim it every single day as yours. There is no form of witchcraft, there is no form of spell that can break you. And no matter what has happened, no matter how much you have been hidden in society, it's important to rise up. It's important to know that even if you were a seed, it's important to know that you are able to bloom, you are able to be nourished, and you have to make sure that you are with the right people that do that, not from a double minded or double standard perspective, or from a social um validation of, look, we are so diverse, we also have black children, but yet they are just using you as a construct of how liberal and diverse they are, when reality we know the insanity behind that society. So please understand that, take some time to heal from that, and that you will be chosen. Yes, you will be chosen, and that's exactly what the Cinderella is about, for years not being chosen, for years being the outcast, for years being the one that's not liked, or for years being the last person to receive blessings, to receive things. There comes a time where the first will be last and the last will be first. And make sure that at that time you have the support. And if it's not the support from physical people, make sure that you anchor your support from a spiritual perspective of love, and pray, and really ask for your fairy godmothers to step in, to be a loving mother figure in your life. I really hope this reaches somebody who needs it, because it's a painful, it's a painful story. It's a painful story, but please know that we will, and you will find your glory. So if you made it this far in the video, please share it with somebody who has been adopted, who has been really alienated, discriminated against, and who has had their identity and destiny tarnished. Please share it with them, and I will see you in the next video.